What's the difference between being obsessed with feelings and being continuously mindful of what's alive inside us and using our sense of rightness to open out into it? So I talked this morning about the Lord of materialism of mind, where you're obsessed with your feelings and then continuously mindful of what's alive inside us and using our sense of rightness to open out into it. That turn of phrase, what's alive inside us, makes me think of Marshall Rosenberg's turn of phrase. So I'm assuming it's being used in the same way here. That the key to self-empathy, being able to really relate to oneself in a very open way, is to find what's alive in us in any particular moment. So if we're in a difficult communication with the world or with somebody, there's something, we're feeling something, like we might be feeling indignant, we might be feeling overwhelmed, or we might be feeling pissed off or whatever. And it's about something that's very alive for us, which is sometimes called a need, but it's a universal need, something that, what's alive in me is a sense of that's it. Feeling uncomfortable and the need for ease in the way the connection with other people is going. I feel that's very alive, and therefore I have to be aware of that in order to embody that and then to express that, rather than thinking, oh God, I can't stand it when people do things like that. And just block them off and then say, well, I'm off now. Look forward to seeing you again. I'm rushing out. It's sort of like somehow you're not really alive to what's really going on in you, and therefore in a way the thing can only get more and more complicated and disconnected. So there is a need to be aware of what's happening. So how's that different from being obsessed with how I'm feeling? I think again it's a matter of how much of a big deal you make of it, really. So if you're being very open to what's happening within you, and whatever is happening within you, that's what's interesting, that's what's happening, that's what you're opening to, that can only be the path, really. Whereas if you're picking and choosing and thinking, well, I don't want to feel that, I want to feel that, I notice I don't like that, so I don't like that person, and I'm going to go and I'm not going to come back. That's kind of like you've already reacted and you're not in touch with what's alive in you. You've already now intellectualized it. Well, people like that don't deserve, any of my time, blah, 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 whatever it is. Whatever it is that you're spinning off into, some justification or some kind of trying to get yourself away from that irritation. Whereas if you're staying awake to what's alive in you, you'd be noticing the irritation, and you'd be appreciating the irritation. This is a lot of irritation going on here. It's like that's it. That's the moment, irritation. And then, if you've read on in the book, you'll know how Rinpoche describes the monkey and the solidification of the walls. So that when you feel the irritation, you could either solidify the walls and say, well, obviously the thing to do is to make those walls stronger, to keep the irritation out. That might be the monkey's strategy. Whereas taking Rinpoche's approach, you'd think, then I can feel feel that wall more carefully now. There's irritation. I can feel the irritation. I can feel where that's happening. And just really let yourself feel it. And then, to your surprise, if you can drop all the papancha, all the beliefs and preconceived ideas, the feeling is a kind of energy in space. It's kind of like, oh, there's actually much more space in this situation than I was allowing for. To me, there only seemed one way out, and that was solidify the walls, retreat from the walls, or, get them stronger, somehow do something in that direction, whereas actually, if I go towards the walls, towards the irritation, and allow that to really, really feel that irritation, it opens up into a much more spacious situation where you can see other possibilities. Like you could, you might find you could even offer to pick that other person up off the floor, rather than kind of walking off and leaving them. So, and it applies to yourself as well. You can actually meet yourself that way rather than, leaving yourself in a heap of misery. So that just came to mind when I read that. So it's not a matter of making a big deal out of your feelings. So if you had a feeling of irritation, and then make a big deal out of it, oh, I'm feeling this irritation, how can I get rid of this irritation? How can I be different? That would be like getting obsessed with the irritation. Whereas being alive to it would lead to some kind of transformation. Because you're, in a way, you're breathing life into it. That irritation is something, actually. Funnily enough, it's not there, and yet at the same time, it's very powerful. It's got a lot of energy, a lot of freedom in it. Could go in different directions. So there's a lot more to say about that, but maybe that's enough for now. I think our usual obsessive preoccupation with feelings is like, okay, you feel angry, which feels really uncomfortable. You sit down to meditation with your anger, and it's really uncomfortable, and it spoils your meditation, doesn't it? So think, oh, if they hadn't said that, then I wouldn't be thinking that. And then I could have a good meditation. So somehow my meditation is something different from what I'm feeling. Because actually the meditation is for feeling what you're feeling. So it can't disturb your meditation. It's feeding it. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Where we obsessively try to not feel what we're feeling. And completely preoccupied with that. And yet being sensitive to what's alive in us would be the opposite.